Before we begin, take a moment to get comfortable. Let your arms go heavy, your breath slow. And as you listen, feel free to leave a comment sharing what time it is, where you are, and what city or village you're listening from. It's love to know. And if you'd like more quiet stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe so they gently appear when you need them most. Now, let's begin. The morning is pale and cool, the first light of the sun spreading slowly across the tiled roofs of Rome. You hear the sound of water before you see it, a steady rush. Not wild like a river, but controlled, guided, flowing with purpose through the stone channels of an aqueduct. The arches rise high above you, vast and solemn, their shadows falling long across the earth, and beneath them, walking with quiet steps, are men you may not notice at first, inspectors of water, keepers of flow, guardians of what the city cannot live without. Their names are seldom spoken in histories. Emperors are remembered, generals are praised, senators debate in marble halls. But the water inspectors lived in the background, watching, listening, moving along the hidden arteries of Rome. Without them, the fountains would falter, the baths would grow silent, the houses of the wealthy would stand dry. Their duty was to keep the lifeblood of the city in motion, unseen and uncelebrated. You follow one now, your footsteps echoing on the packed earth. He carries a small tool, iron glinting faintly in the light, and his eyes move constantly, tracing the curves of channels, the joints of stone, the trickle of leaks that whisper where no leak should be. He listens for the uneven sound of water, the faint gurgle that tells of obstruction, the hiss that signals cracks. His work is not loud, not dramatic, but constant. Rome breathes because its water flows, and its water flows because men like him gave the days to WATCH, FUELNESS. Pause for a moment and breathe in the air around you. It smells of damp stone, of moss clinging to channels, of dust warmed by sun. Far below, in the city, smoke rises from hearths, bread bakes in ovens, voices swell in markets. All of this depends on water. Baths, great halls of marble and heat, where citizens gather, not only to wash, but to speak, to plot, to rest. Without water, they would be hollow shells. The fountains, glittering in courtyards, fed by constant streams. Without water, they would be silent bowls. Even the latrines, vast communal spaces of marble benches, needed water to carry filth away, to keep the city clean. The inspectors knew this, even if others did not think of them. Their quiet presence was the thread that held the fabric of Rome together. Yet their work was not only technical, it was also political, for water was power. The aqueducts carried more than streams. They carried influence, wealth, privilege. A senator might divert water to his villa, a merchant to his workshop, a tavern owner to his kitchens. The inspectors were tasked with preventing such thefts, but bribery was common, persuasion subtle. Imagine the inspector walking a narrow street, hearing water where no water should be. He follows it to a private pipe, leading not to a fountain or bath, but to a hidden courtyard. He must decide to report, to accept a gift for his silence. His work balanced not only stone and flow, but honesty and survival. Still, most of his time was simpler, quieter. He walked the aqueducts at dawn, checking the arches for cracks, the channels for weeds, the cisterns for silt. He listened to the sound of water in darkness, carrying a lamp whose flame bent in the breeze of underground tunnels. He felt the walls with his hands, tracing rough stone, searching for dampness that betrayed weakness. It was labor that required patience, a kind of devotion, a willingness to notice what others ignored. And in that patience lies something almost monastic. The inspector's life was not one of glory, but of repetition. Step after step, along the arches, hour after hour listening, day after day, watching water flow. His world was shadows and echoes, damp and silence, punctuated by the steady rhythm of water. Perhaps he felt pride in it, perhaps only weariness. But Rome endured because men like him endured. You imagine now the aqueducts at night. The moonlight falls across their arches, pale and silver, the stones gleaming faintly in darkness. The city sleeps below, its streets hushed, its fires dim. Yet the water still flows, steady, unbroken. And somewhere, an inspector moves along the channel, his lamp flickering, his footsteps soft. He bends, listens, traces the edge of stone, nods to himself, and continues. The city does not see him, does not think of him, but without his watch. The city would thirst. It is easy to forget these men, because their work was meant to prevent disaster, not to create triumph. A well-tended aqueduct does not announce itself. It does not collapse. It does not run dry. It simply continues, day after day, like breath, like heartbeat. And so their names vanish into silence, their stories unrecorded, their duties forgotten. Yet, in the faint sound of water rushing beneath arches, in the coolness of fountains still flowing after centuries, you can almost hear their echoes. The inspectors remind us that history is not only made by those who command armies or govern empires, but also by those who guard the ordinary. Water was Rome's ordinary miracle, flowing without pause, sustaining millions. And men with quiet steps, men who hid in shadows, ensured that the miracle did not break. Now, the morning has grown brighter. The sun strikes the arches, casting strong lines of shadow across the valley. The inspector moves on, his figure small against a vast stone. You watch him disappear, swallowed by the rhythm of his duty, leaving behind only the sound of water, steady and endless, and you are left with a question that drifts like the flow itself. Was the greatness of Rome built by emperors? Oh, by the forgotten men who listened to water in silence, ensuring it never ceased to flow. Asterisk, the sun has risen high now, but the inspector's path is not always along the lofty arches that dominate the skyline. Much of his duty lies below, in the hidden world beneath the city, a world of tunnels, cisterns, and shadows where the water runs unseen. You follow him down a stone stairway, the air growing cooler, the light dimmer, until the noise of the streets fades and the sound of flowing water fills your ears. It is not a roar, but a steady, muffled murmur, echoing through the dark. He lifts a small oil lamp, its flame trembling against the damp walls. Drops of water cling to the stone, glimmering faintly, falling with the occasional soft plink into shallow pools. The air smells of earth and moss, mixed with the faint temps of mineral water that has traveled miles through channels of stone. Down here, the city above feels far away. Life continues above the markets, the baths, the theaters. But here, there is only water, silence, and a man who must keep watch over them. The inspector bends low to examine a wall where moisture seeps through. He traces it with his fingers, feeling the cool dampness. A crack has begun to spread. If left unattended, it could widen, weakening the channel, wasting the water. He makes note of it, perhaps marking the stone with chalk, planning repair crews for later. His work is both simple and immense. To notice, to listen, to prevent. Imagine how easy it would be for such cracks to multiply unnoticed. Rome depended on 11 great aqueducts by its height, carrying water across hills, valleys, and plains, spanning hundreds of miles in total. The flow had to remain constant, reliable. Even the smallest leak could become a flood, and the smallest obstruction could choke the stream. Without men in these tunnels, carrying their lamps, bending close to hear the whispers of water, the system would falter. But it was not only cracks they sought. The inspectors watched for silt building, and cisterns. For weeds growing where roots intruded. For rats and vermin gnawing at weak points. They listened for changes in sound. Water flowing too fast, too slow, too uneven. To hear water was a skill like listening to music. A steady hum meant safety. A stutter, a gurgle, a faint hiss. These meant danger. In this way, the inspector was less a laborer and more a listener. A man who read the language of water in darkness. Pause and picture the stillness around him. The lamp flickers. Shadows tremble on the stone. The water glides past with a low sigh. He crouches ear near the surface, hearing its secrets. To others, it would sound like nothing, only a stream. But to him, each tone carries meaning. Each echo is a clue. The city above cannot hear it, but he does, and in hearing it, he keeps it alive. Life for him was shaped by this silence. While others stood in crowded forums or shouted in noisy markets, he walked in damp tunnels where words were unnecessary. Perhaps he found peace in it. Perhaps it weighed on him. Silence could be heavy, pressing like the stone above. But it also carried a kind of holiness, for water was sacred to the Romans, dedicated to gods, guarded by law, protected by ritual. To watch over it was not only duty, but reverence. And yet, there were dangers here. Tunnels could collapse, leaving men trapped in darkness. Sudden floods could surge through, extinguishing lamps, sweeping all away. Air could grow stale, leaving inspectors lightheaded, their breaths shallow. Each descent into the underground was a risk, an act of trust in stone and silence. But it was done again and again because Rome required it. Now imagine him emerging from the tunnel hours later. His cloak is damp, his lamp nearly spent, his eyes blinking against the brightness of the day. He steps once more into the living city, the cries of merchants, the laughter of children, the rumble of carts. Few look at him. None know where he has been, what he has done. Yet their fountains flow, their baths steam, their cisterns fill, because he has walked in silence where they never will. This rhythm of descent and return, shadows and light, shaped his life, shaped his life. It was not glamorous, not remembered, but essential. Rome's greatness stood not only on marble temples or golden statues, but on water, and water endured because men walked its hidden paths with lamps in hand. You linger on the image. The tunnels beneath Rome, endless and dark, their walls slick with damp, their echoes filled with water's low voice. The inspector walking steadily, his lamp of fragile glow, his ear bent to the stream. Above, the city bustles, unknowing, uncaring. Below, the flow continues, guarded in silence, and you are left with a thought that drifts like a drop falling into a pool. Perhaps the truest foundations of empires are not the monuments that rise into the sky, but the quiet duties hidden in the dark where only a few ever walk, and where their names vanish into silence. Asterisk, the day leans into afternoon, and the sun glints off marble statues, bronze chariots, and tiled roofs that shimmer in the heat. In the forum, voices rise, senators argue, merchants haggle, and crowds surge through colonnades. Everywhere, the presence of water is felt, though rarely noticed. A fountain splashes cool relief into a crowded square, its jets rising into the air. In the baths, steam curls above pools where citizens recline, their conversations carried softly through the cavernous halls. In houses, pitchers are filled, kitchens are washed, courtyards refreshed. It is water that sustains it all, yet water does not carry itself. Hidden behind the daily abundance are the inspectors, men whose work flows as invisibly as the aqueducts themselves. Picture one of these inspectors standing now at the edge of a settling basin, a castellum aquae. The water has traveled miles through stone channels and tunnels, only to gather here in stillness before being divided and sent along smaller pipes. The basin echoes with the soft rush of inflow, the gurgle of outflow. The inspector watches the surface, noting clarity, listening to the sounds of pipes, measuring the pressure with practiced eyes. To others, it is only water. To him, it is duty embodied. He carries records, wax tablets tucked in his pouch. It's filled with marks of allocation. How much flows to the baths, how much to fountains, how much to private houses, privileged enough to hold pipes of lead. Hay knows that to miscalculate is to risk shortage, to risk anger from the powerful. Water was never simply shared. It was portioned, negotiated, guarded. His role is both technical and political, for every drop is claimed, and every claim must be balanced. The inspector traces the edges of the basin with his hand. The stone is cool, damp, rough beneath his fingertips. Moss grows in corners. Birds flutter above, their wings flashing in sunlight. He bends to listen, to hear the even pulse of outflow. It is steady today, unbroken, a sound like breathing. The city will rest easy for now, but always there is unease. He knows that some divert water unlawfully. Pipes are tapped in secret. Drains widened without permission. A workshop might still flow for its vats, a wealthy patron for his gardens. The inspector must walk the streets, listening for water where none should be. It's tracing damp walls, hearing faint trickles behind plaster. At times, he finds them, these hidden thefts. At times, he looks away. The way to flow is not only stone and water, but also choice and compromise. Pause in your thoughts and look around. Imagine Rome as a body, its aqueducts, the veins, its fountains, the pulse. The inspector is like a physician, listening, diagnosing, treating where he can. His work is not noticed until it fails, and then all eyes turn to him. If a bath runs dry, if a fountain seizes, if a villa complains of empty pipes, the inspector bears the blame. He carries the weight of flow, not only in stone channels, but in his own reputation. And yet, the city itself seems unaware. Citizens step into steaming pools, splash in fountains, wash their hands, drink cool water from pitchers. Children laugh as they play, filling small cups at the fountains. Merchants rinse their stalls. Bakers moisten their dough. Smiths quench hot iron. Life flows easily for them, without thought. None pause to wonder who watches the cracks, who listens in tunnels, who weighs the balance in basins. The inspector walks past them unnoticed, his cloak plain, his lamp smoky, his tools simple. His work is invisible because it must be. There is something deeply fragile in this arrangement. Rome, vast and mighty, rests on countless small acts of vigilance. An empire of marble and bronze depends on men walking damp tunnels, on ears pressed to water, on eyes straining in shadow. The inspector embodies this paradox. He is not powerful, not praised, yet he holds in his silence the means by which power endures. Now imagine the evening descending. The light fades, the noise of the forum quiets, and torches begin to flicker in the streets. The aqueduct arches glow faintly in the last light, their stones warm from the day. The inspector makes his way home, weary, his steps slow, his hands still smell of damp stone. His cloak carries traces of moss and dust. He will eat bread, perhaps olives, perhaps cheese, in silence. He will sleep, knowing that tomorrow he must walk again, listen again, guard again. His life is the rhythm of water, endless, patient, seldom noticed, and so you return in your mind to the image of flowing water, steady, unbroken, soft as a sigh. You hear it echo in tunnels, you see it sparkle in fountains, you feel it warm, in steam rising from the baths. Behind it all are men whose names we do not know, whose duties we have forgotten, whose silence shaped the endurance of Rome, and you are left with a thought that drifts like ripples across still water perhaps. Empires survive, not through the weight of their armies or the splendor of their palaces, but through the unseen patience of those who watch, listen, and keep the flow unbroken. Asterisk, the night settles softly over Rome, though the city never fully sleeps. Torches burn in alleyways, their smoke curling upward into the dark. The streets echo with the last calls of vendors packing away their goods, the clatter of shutters closing, the shuffle of sandals on cobblestone. And still, beneath it all, the sound of water flows steady, constant, moving through pipes of lead, through channels of stone, through aqueducts that stride like giants across the land. It flows unseen into fountains, into baths, into the Rye, courtyards of villas. Yet not all of it flows where it should. Some of it vanishes into shadows, stolen in silence by hands that know where to tap. You walk now with an inspector through a narrow street. The air is damp, the walls close, plaster peeling where water has seeped. Hay carries a small lantern, its flame flickering against stone. His eyes move sharply, listening, watching, alert for the telltale signs. He knows that somewhere nearby, someone has pierced the pipes. It may be a wealthy household, eager for more water than allotted. It may be a workshop, feeding vats for dyeing cloth. It may be a tavern, draining extra to brew and clean. Water is wealth, and where there is wealth, there is theft. The inspector bends low, pressing his ear to the wall. You hear only silence. At first, the faint crackle of the lantern. But then, as he tilts his head, you notice it too, a thin trickle, a hiss like breath slipping through stone. He traces it with his hand, following the sound along the wall until he finds the place. The plaster is damp, the air cooler. Somewhere behind it, a pipe has been tapped. Someone has stolen the flow. Pause and consider what this means. The aqueducts carried enough water to sustain 1,000,000 souls, yet even abundance had limits. Every drop was accounted for, portioned between baths, fountains, private houses, and public needs. Theft disrupted the balance, left fountains weaker, baths less full, sometimes entire neighborhoods short of water. For the inspector, each hidden pipe was not only theft, but danger, a disruption in the fragile system that kept Rome alive. He marks the wall discreetly, planning for repairs. In some cases, he might break open the pipe immediately, sealing the unlawful spur. In others, he might report it, leaving it to magistrates to decide. But here lies the quiet truth. Sometimes he accepts a bribe instead. For water was power, and power was rarely pure. A senator might lean close, reminding him of favors owed. A wealthy merchant might press coins into his hand, asking him to turn his gaze elsewhere. Even inspectors, guardians of flow, were human. They balanced survival with duty, silence with honesty. Still, the work remained. Theft was endless, and so was watchfulness. Imagine him walking the city at dawn, the streets empty, his ears tuned not to voices, but to water. He knows his sounds, like a musician knows notes. He hears where it slows, where it quickens, where it disappears. Each sound guides him, each silence warns him. The city above never notices, never thinks of it, but he notices always. It is his burden, his life, and theft took many forms. Some dug secret channels from aqueducts leading to villas outside the city. Others widened drains, drawing more than permitted. Some bribed lower officials for licenses, papers forged or twisted to appear legitimate. The inspector's task was to unravel these shadows, to restore the balance. His work was part investigation, part repair, part negotiation. He was less a laborer than a quiet detective for water, moving unseen, listening to what others ignored. The atmosphere around him is heavy with dampness. Torches sputter, lanterns smoke, shadows cling to walls. He passes a tavern, its door ajar, laughter spilling out, mugs clinking. Inside, water is used freely to brew, to wash, to serve. He knows. Some taverns steal their pipes hidden behind plaster, their drains widened in secret. But tonight, he walks past, his duty elsewhere. The thefts are too many to chase all at once. He chooses his battles, as all guardians must. Picture now a fountain in a public square. By day, it sparkles, its water clear, its basin full. Children play there, women fill jars, travelers refresh themselves. But at night, when demand falls, the inspector listens. The fountain trickles too weakly. If its basin empties too quickly, he knows something is wrong. He follows the pipes backward, step by step, until he finds where the flow has been siphoned away. Each weak fountain is a clue, each dry basin a voice telling him of theft. And yet, the city rarely thanks him. The citizens see only the fountains flowing, the baths steaming, the water always present. They do not know the hours spent walking shadows, the ears bent to walls, the hands tracing damp plaster. They do not know the bribes offered, the threats endured, the silence kept. The inspector is forgotten, his work invisible. But without him, the city would thirst. Now pause and feel the air again. It is heavy with the smell of damp stone, the faint thumps of lead pipes, the smoke of lanterns. The water flows still, but not all of it flows rightly. Somewhere nearby, a hidden pipe continues, its trickle feeding a garden, a workshop, a bathhouse. That should not have it. The inspector has noted it. Perhaps will return, perhaps will decide. The flow continues, steady but shadowed, honest but stolen, and you are left with a question that drifts like the sound of hidden water. In a city built on abundance, is the truer power in the arches of the aqueducts, or in the shadows, where unseen men decided who would drink freely and who would thirst in silence? Asterisk, the morning light returns to Rome, pale and gold, spreading across roofs of terracotta. From the aqueduct arches high above the city, water glitters faintly in its channels, moving as it always does, silent, unbroken, essential. But in the streets below, in the narrow alleys and hidden courtyards, the story of water is not always so pure. For water was not simply a gift of nature in Rome. It was a commodity, a right, a privilege, and at times a weapon. The inspectors stood at the center of these currents, forced to balance duty with pressure, honesty with survival. Picture one of them standing in a senator's villa. The atrium is vast, its marble floor polished, its fountain sparkling with more water than any public square nearby. The inspector knows that this fountain should not flow so freely. The allocation to private houses was limited, carefully measured, always less than what the public fountains received. Yet here, the stream is strong, the sound of its fall echoing in the marble hall like laughter. He understands at once. A hidden pipe has been widened, or a spur tapped unlawfully. The senator, robed in white, smiles as though nothing is amiss. He gestures for the inspector to sit, offers wine, speaks of loyalty to Rome, and then, quietly, almost casually, leaves a small purse of coins within reach. The inspector feels its weight before he even touches it. To report the theft would mean a quarrel with a powerful man, one who could ruin his career, perhaps his life. To accept the purse would mean silence, complicity, safety. He hesitates, knowing what is just, knowing to what is possible. In this way, the flow of water becomes tangled with the flow of power. The inspector does not write of it in his wax tablet. The record remains clean. The fountain continues to sparkle, and the senator's smile lingers. This scene is not rare. The theft of water was woven deeply into Roman life. Q. The aqueducts were immense, but their abundance encouraged greed. Q's. Workshops needed more for their vats of dye. Bakers, more for their ovens. Taverns, more for their brewing. The wealthy wanted fountains, gardens, even private baths. And so pipes were tapped, drains widened, diversions made. The inspectors were tasked with policing it all, but they were men living in a city where coins carried heavy weight. Pause and feel the tension of their lives. To remain incorruptible was to invite enmity from the powerful. To accept every bribe was to betray the public. And so most walked a middle path, stopping some thefts, ignoring others, accepting silence when it seemed safer than honesty. In this way, the inspectors became not only guardians of water, but mediators of influence. Each decision carried ripples, unseen but real, across the city. Consider now a tavern at dusk. Its doorway glows with lamplight, its benches crowded with laughter. Inside, the inspector notices water flowing too freely, filling cisterns, washing mugs, feeding fires. He knows the tavern is taking more than allotted. The owner, stout and smiling, meets his eyes, gestures him to a seat, presses a cup into his hand. "Stay a while," he says. "Rest from your labors." Coins slip across the table, hidden under the mug. The inspector sips, tastes the bitterness of ale, and weighs his choice. The flow continues. The tavern thrives. The theft is never reported. And yet, not all inspectors were silent. Some enforced strictly, breaking hidden pipes, sealing drains, reporting names to magistrates. These men lived with enemies, with threats whispered in alleys, with danger shadowing their steps. One chronicler speaks of inspectors beaten in the streets, punished for daring to cut water from villas. Their duty was a narrow path between law and survival, always walked in silence, never praised, seldom rewarded. Now imagine the public fountains, their streams weaker in certain quarters. Women wait with jars, children gather with cups, the poor drink from what remains. They do not know why the flow is weaker, why their fountain is shallow. They only know it is harder to fill their jars. The inspector knows. He knows which villa takes too much, which workshop diverts secretly, which tavern bribes freely. He carries the knowledge like a burden, weight pressing heavier than the water itself. The atmosphere around him is thick with contradiction. He hears the laughter of nobles in their private gardens, the hiss of dye bubbling in workshops, the splash of water in fountains that should not exist. At the same time, he hears the voices of the poor waiting longer at public basins. He stands between these worlds, silent, weary, uncertain, where justice lies. Wax tablets record flow, but not truth. Truth is harder to mark, harder to measure, harder to guard. Picture him returning home at night, his lamp low, his cloak damp from mist. He lays the purse of coins on his table, stares at it without speaking. He knows what it means. He knows, too, what would have happened had he refused. The room is silent, save for the faint sound of water still flowing beneath the city. Steady, unbroken, indifferent to honesty or theft. He sighs, weary, and the silence of his small dwelling grows heavier, and you are left with a question that drifts like the hush of water underground. Was the city's greatness preserved by those who kept the flow honest, or by those who chose silence, ensuring that water continued, even if unjustly? The afternoon fades, and Rome glows in the long light of evening. Shadows stretch across the aqueduct arches, their lines sharp against the hills. In the streets, torches begin to flicker, their smoke curling upward, their flames trembling in the wind. The voices of the Forum soften. Merchants close their stalls, and citizens turn toward their homes. But the water flows on, indifferent to time. It slides through pipes of lead, glides beneath marble streets, spills from fountains into basins where the last drinkers linger. And somewhere in the city, an inspector walks, carrying not only his lamp and his tools, but the weight of all he has seen, all he knows. all he cannot say. He knows where the thefts lie. He can point to villas whose fountains sparkle too brightly, their jets reaching higher than permitted. He can list taverns whose vats fill endlessly, their mugs washed again and again in water that should belong to the public. He can trace workshops whose dyes glistened too richly, colored by streams drawn unlawfully from hidden pipes. Each theft is clear to him, each silence is chosen. His burden is not ignorance, but knowledge that cannot always be acted upon. Picture him standing at a public fountain. Children laugh as they splash. Women fill jars. The poor lean to drink with cupped hands. But the stream is weaker than it should be. The inspector sees it at once. The ark too low, the basin too slow to fill. He knows why. Somewhere upstream, water has been taken. Hears the laughter of children, sees the weariness of women, feels the thirst of the poor. Yet he does not speak. He writes nothing. He turns away, his cloak brushing the stones, his silence heavy. For silence is survival. To name the powerful is to invite their wrath. To cut pipes in secret courtyards is to risk violence in dark alleys. To stand always against theft is to stand always in danger. And so he walks a middle road, knowing more than he acts upon, carrying truth unspoken. His silence feeds the injustice, yet also ensures that he remains to guard at least some part of the system. Without him, the water might flow even less fairly. With him, it flows imperfectly, but still it flows. Pause here and breathe with him. The evening air is warm, smelling of dust and smoke, touched faintly with the dampness of fountains. The inspector leans against a wall, his lamp guttering, his body tired. He closes his eyes, hearing water in the distance, not only its sound, but its absences, its diversions, its thefts. To others, water is only presence. To him, it is absence. To each, silence as loud as the stream itself. This is the inspector's burden, not only to guard, but to know theft and say nothing, to know injustice and remain quiet, to know truth and carry it alone. His wax tablets record flows and measures, but they cannot record the weight of silence. That weight rests in him, pressing against his chest, shaping his life. And yet, within him, there may also be pride. For despite the thefts, despite the bribes, despite the compromises, Rome's fountains still flow. Its baths still steam, its aqueducts still carry abundance. His vigilance, even imperfect, sustains the city. He knows the cracks, the leaks, the obstructions. He knows the places where water falters. He repairs what he can, ignores what he must, guards what he is able. Without him, the silence would be deeper still. Imagine him returning home. His room is small, its walls bare, its air heavy with the faint smell of damp clothes. He sets down his lamp, the flame dimming, the shadows lengthening. On his table lie his wax tablets, filled with numbers, allocations, notes. He reads them again, though he knows them by heart. He sees where flow is strong, where it is weak, where it has been stolen. He sighs, presses his hands to his face, feels the grit of dust and stone on his skin. The silence of the room mirrors the silence of his work, heavy, necessary, ending down. Now, picture the aqueducts themselves, vast in the twilight. Their arches rise against the darkening sky, immense and steady. Water glides across them, steady as breath, carrying life into the city. Citizens look up at the arches with pride, marveling at Rome's grandeur. But none think of the men who walk beneath, listening, watching, bearing the burden of knowing. Their names are unrecorded, their duties forgotten, their silence unbroken, and you are left with a reflection that drifts like water through stone. Perhaps the heaviest burden is not labor, nor danger, but knowledge carried without voice, the kind of knowledge that shapes a city. It vanishes into silence when its keeper is gone. Asterisk, the dawn returns once more, soft and cool across the hills beyond the city. The aqueduct arches stretch into the distance, pale against the rising light, their shadows still long on the fields below. You hear again the sound of water rushing within, steady, controlled, gliding as though guided by unseen hands, but not all water that entered Rome was fit for use. Inspectors knew this well. They were not only keepers of flow, but guardians of purity, men whose eyes searched for silt, whose ears listened for foulness, whose noses tested the air for staleness. Their task was not only to keep water moving, but to keep it clean. Imagine one of them standing at the source, far from the city. The spring bubbles up from the earth, cool and clear, glistening beneath the sun. Birds sing nearby, reeds sway in the breeze, and the water looks pure to the untrained eye. But he kneels, lifts it in his hand, lets it fall slowly back into the pool, smells it, tastes it, feels a grit of silt between his fingers. For him, purity is not appearance, but texture, scent, sound. He knows that even the clearest stream may carry corruption, and that corruption carried into the city could spread illness. Fear, unrest, pause, and feel the air around him. It smells of earth, of grass, of cool stone touched with dew. The water glistens, the light sparkles across its surface. To most, it is beautiful. To him, it is duty, a source to be measured, guarded, tested. He carries wax tablets to note its state, his stylus carving faint lines in their soft surface. The record is silent, but the meaning is immense. The purity of Rome depends on his quiet watch. From the source, the water travels, along stone channels, through tunnels, across valleys, beneath hills. At each point, it risks corruption. Animals may fall into open channels, their bodies fouling the stream. Silt may gather in basins, thickening the flow. Algae may grow in warmth, turning clear water dark. Specters move along these routes, lamps in hand, when tunnels grow dim, their ears tuned for changes, their eyes sharp for signs of foulness. They bend close to smell, to taste, to touch. They act as Rome's hidden physicians, diagnosing the health of its veins. Picture now a settling basin on the edge of the city. The water gathers here before being divided, calm and still, its surface smooth. The inspector stands above it, watching carefully. He sees faint ripples where there should be stillness, hears faint gurgles where there should be silence. He bends, lifts a handful, tastes it with practiced lips. He feels grit against. His tongue senses heaviness in its weight. He orders the basin cleaned, the silt scraped, the flow slowed until purity returns. No one thanks him. Few know he was here. But the water that enters the city is cleaner because of his quiet vigilance. And yet, not all corruption is natural. Pipes of lead carried water into Rome, and though the Romans did not know the full danger, some suspected its harm. Specters noted when pipes leached too much taste, when water grew metallic in scent. They knew that pure water was lighter, fresher, softer. They spoke of sources that yielded water sweeter, more healthful, less burdened. They favored springs and hills, cold and swift, over rivers sluggish and foul. Their voices sometimes reached magistrates, sometimes were ignored. Still they noted, still they tasted, still they guarded what they could. Think now of the baths. Vast halls filled with steam, pools glowing in lamplight, voices echoing in marble spaces. Citizens gathered here daily, their bodies eased, their minds refreshed. But the baths demanded purity. Foul water would sicken, would spread whispers of neglect, would stain Rome's pride. And so inspectors watched closely. They checked cisterns, smelled the water, ordered drains cleared. They labored unseen so that citizens might enter without fear. Their only thought, the comfort of warmth, the ease of washing. The fountains too demanded purity. Children filled cups there. Travelers refreshed themselves. The poor drank freely. A single foul taste could spark distrust, unrest. Rome's citizens expected abundance, but they also expected safety. The inspectors carried this weight. They could not fail, though their names were lost, their duties forgotten. Now, picture one walking home at dusk. His cloak is damp from bending. Over basins, his hands smelled faintly of stone and moss. He is weary, but his mind turns still to the water, to its clarity, to its weight, to its sound. He has no marble statue, no golden chariot, no songs sung in his name. But he knows the city breathes through what he guards. He knows that purity, like flow, must be tended quietly, patiently, without pause. And so, you sit with this thought, hearing again the faint rush of water beneath the arches, the low echo of flow in tunnels, the stillness of basins reflecting sky. You picture the inspector, small against the vastness of Rome, his lamp trembling in shadows, his hand dipping again and again into water, and you are left with a question. Unresolved, drifting like ripples in a basin, was the greatness of Rome, found in its temples and forums, or in the silent vigilance of men who bent their heads to water, tasting for purity in shadows no one else cared to see. Asterisk, the city is alive again with noise. Midday has come, and the forum hums with voices. Senators speak, merchants bargain, children dart between stalls. The air is heavy with the smell of bread, of roasting meat, of dust rising from stone. Yet beneath it all, the quiet stream of water continues, unseen but everywhere. The fountains glimmer in sunlight, their basins filling endlessly. The baths roar with steam, laughter and murmurs carrying through great marble halls. Rome thrives on abundance, but abundance is fragile, and purity more fragile still. The inspector knows this. He walks not only the aqueducts, but the places where water is stored, the reservoirs, the cisterns, the basins. Here corruption can begin, silent, slow, unnoticed until too late. He bends over a reservoir now, the light catching faint films on the surface. To a casual eye, it is nothing, but to him it is danger. He knows the signs of algae, of growth that will thicken if left unchecked. Hay calls for laborers to scrape, to clean, to drain if necessary. The city will not thank him. No one will know. But the water will be safe, its purity guarded in silence. Pause here and feel the atmosphere. The reservoir is cool, its surface dark, its echoes deep. The inspector's lamp casts faint circles of light, trembling across stone. The drops fall slowly, steady as time. The silence is heavy, broken only by the low rush of water. To him, it is a language. He listens, he interprets, he understands. Danger comes also from intrusion. Animals wander into open channels, their bodies fouling the stream. Rats gnaw at wooden parts. Insects swarm in warmth. Specters walk constantly, searching for signs. Feathers caught in grates. Strange smells rising from cisterns. Unusual colors swirling in water. Each clue matters. Each absence of clarity is warning. The inspector acts swiftly, for he knows that what enters unnoticed can spread sickness through thousands. Asterisk, and sickness was no stranger to Rome. The city's crowded streets, its communal baths, its shared fountains, all carried risk. Clean water was defense, foul water an enemy. The inspector's unseen labor was Rome's first shield, though no one spoke of it, no one sang of it. His vigilance meant that mothers filled jars without fear, that children drank without pause, that travelers refreshed themselves without suspicion. Imagine him in the baths, where water flows in abundance. The rooms glow with steam. Marble walls drip with moisture. Voices echo in great chambers. Pools of hot and cold fill endlessly. Drains gurgle. Fountains splash. The inspector walks quietly. Among them, unnoticed, he bends to check drains, to smell the water, to listen for changes. To the bathers, he is a shadow, a worker, a man unseen. But without his eyes, without his silence, the water might grow foul, the pools dangerous, the trust broken. The dangers were not only physical, they were political too. Accusations of foul water could shake confidence, could spark unrest. A public fountain tasting of rot could stir anger. A bath said to sicken could empty halls. The inspector carried not only tools, but responsibility for peace. His notes on wax tablets were not merely measures, but shields against doubt. He walked with the weight of more than purity. He walked with the weight of trust. Picture now a cistern deep below the city. The air is cool, damp, filled with the echo of drops falling into water far below. The inspector holds his lamp high, its flame trembling. The walls glisten with moisture, the steps slippery beneath his sandals. Hay descends carefully, his breath slow, his ears tuned to sound. Hay leans close, listens, smells, tastes. Hay. The water here will feed fountains, baths, homes. Its safety depends on him. Alone in shadows, he carries the burden of many, and yet his name will not be remembered. No monument will be raised, no statue carved. He returns to the surface, blinking at sunlight, and passes among citizens who do not see him. He is ordinary, anonymous, invisible, but the water they drink is safe. The baths they enter are pure. The fountains they trust are steady because of him. His anonymity is the measure of his success. The less he is noticed, the more the city thrives. Now, pause with this thought. Consider how fragile it all was. A stream of water stretched across valleys, carried through stone, divided into channels, stored in basins, watched by eyes that few remembered. Fragile, yet enduring, because men with lamps bent their heads to it day after day. Fragile, yet powerful, because purity, guarded in silence, sustained millions. The inspector returns home at dusk, weary, his cloak damp, his hands rough with stone. He sets down his tools, his lamp, his tablets. He sits in silence, hearing faintly the rush of water still moving beyond his walls. It flows unbroken, steady, endless. He closes his eyes, and the sound carries him into rest. Tomorrow he will rise, walk again, listen again, guard again. His duty has no end, as the flow has no end. And you are left with a reflection that lingers like the faint echo of water in a cistern. Was Rome's greatness held in its emperor's decrees, or in the unseen vigilance of men who bent their heads to purity, ensuring that water, the quiet lifeblood of the city, never betrayed its people? Asterisk, the sun has dipped lower, and the golden haze of late afternoon softens the edges of Rome. Shadows stretch across tiled roofs, across marble columns, across the long roads leading outward to the aqueducts that carry water still, unbroken, into the city. The fountains sparkle in the fading light, their streams shimmering like threads of silver. Children laugh as they fill cups. Women lift jars to their shoulders. Weary men pause to splash their faces before walking home. All trust the water. All believe it to be clean, pure, safe. And behind that trust stands the inspector, silent, unseen, carrying the weight of purity on his shoulders. Trust was everything. In a city where water flowed freely, trust meant citizens could drink without fear, bathe without hesitation, rest without worry. But trust was fragile. A single foul fountain, a single tainted cistern, could spread rumors like fire. People whispered quickly in Rome, and whispers could grow into unrest. The inspectors knew this. Their duty was not only to keep water clean, but to preserve the trust that bound the city together. Picture 1, standing at a fountain as the sun fades. The basin glows in the last light, its surface rippling softly. He bends, scoops a handful, lifts it to his nose, smells, tastes, listens. To passers-by, he seems odd, a worker fussing over water. But his act is vital. He is testing, confirming, ensuring that trust holds. For if the water fails, all else falters. The inspector's silence was part of this trust. He did not announce his work, did not proclaim his vigilance. His success was measured by absence. No sickness spreading, no rumors whispered, no fear rising. His anonymity was his shield, his invisibility, his proof. The city trusted the water because it seemed to require no thought, no care. Yet care was everywhere, hidden in his hands, his eyes, his senses. Pause now and imagine him walking the baths at dusk. The steam rises, curling in golden light. Voices echo faintly in vast marble halls. Pools glow, drains gurgle, fountains splash. Citizens rest, their bodies eased, their minds unburdened. They do not think of the inspector passing quietly among them. They do not notice him bending to smell a drain, to taste a trickle, to check a pipe. He is a shadow in their comfort, unseen in their peace. Yet his shadow ensures that peace holds trust, carried weight beyond health. It carried politics. An emperor boasted of aqueducts as symbols of Rome's might. Magistrates prided themselves on fountains flowing, baths steaming, cisterns filling. But the truth of those boasts lay in the inspector's labor. If purity failed, the emperor's promise faltered. Water grew foul, the magistrate's reputation soured. And so the inspector's unseen work was also political shield, though no one spoke of it. Though their names remain unrecorded, the inspector himself bore this burden quietly. He knew his labor touched thousands, yet no one thanked him. He knew his silence carried the weight of trust, yet no one praised him. Perhaps he felt pride in secret. Perhaps he felt only weariness. But either way, he continued, for the flow never ceased. And so neither could he. Picture him now, standing once more at a cistern deep below the city. The walls are damp, the air heavy, the drops falling in rhythm. Lamp flickers, shadows tremble. He leans close, listens to the water, tastes it, smells it. He nods quietly to himself. It is pure, it is safe. He climbs back to the surface, the evening light warm on his face. He walks into the city unnoticed, but the trust of thousands walks with him. And so you linger with the image of Rome at twilight. Fountains sparkle, baths glow, water flows steady and clear. The people rest easy, unafraid. Their trust is whole, unbroken. And behind that trust is a man whose steps echo softly in shadows, whose silence carries weight, whose duty is forgotten, and you are left with a thought. Unresolved, drifting like ripples in the fading light, was the greatness of Rome carved in marble and bronze, or in the invisible trust sustained by men who bent their heads to water, guarding purity in silence. Asterisk, evening deepens, and the lamps of Rome flicker to life one by one. Their flames glow faintly against stone, sending long, trembling shadows across walls and arches. The streets quiet as the last merchants retreat, their stalls folded, their voices fading. Yet beneath this calm, the water still moves. Always, it moves, through tunnels, across arches, into fountains and baths. The lifeblood of the city flows in silence. And somewhere among the shadows, an inspector pauses, ear pressed against stone, listening not for voices of men, but for the voices of flow. The Romans understood that water had sound. To most, it was a murmur at a fountain, a splash in a bath, a trickle in a courtyard basin. But to the inspector, its sound was language. A steady hum meant strength. A hollow gurgle warned of emptiness. A hiss marked leaks. A stutter spoke of blockage. His duty was to listen where others heard nothing, to notice whispers in stone that told of weakness before it became disaster. Picture him in a narrow tunnel, the air cool and damp. He crouches, lantern set beside him, ear pressed to the channel wall. At first, you hear only silence, broken by the faint drip of water from above. Then, slowly, you notice it, the low, steady glide of flow. He tilts his head, frowns, shifts slightly to his trained ear. The sound is not right. It stutters faintly, uneven, as though something blocks the stream. He notes it on his tablet, his stylus pressing softly into wax. Repairs will be needed. Without them, the flow could falter, and with it, the life of a neighborhood. Pause here. Feel the damp air of the tunnel. Smell the moss. See the flicker of his lamp. Imagine the silence, pressing heavily, broken only by water's low voice. This was his world. Shadows and echoes, whispers and patience. To others, it would seem unbearable. To him, it was language, duty, and life. Inspectors were trained to recognize subtle changes. The aqueducts carried water across vast distances, and their integrity depended on vigilance. Cracks formed slowly. Leaks began as whispers. To listen was to save the city. Repairs could be made before collapse. Obstructions cleared before drought. The inspector was less an enforcer now than a listener, a man attuned to sound, whose ears carried the memory of flow. Imagine him walking the great arches at dawn. The valley lies quiet, the fields touched with mist. Climbs to the channel, crouches, listens again. Here the sound is open, broad, strong. He nods. The flow is healthy. He moves on, his sandals scuffing stone, his cloak brushing against moss. His body bends often, his ear pressed again and again to water. His wax tablet filling slowly with marks. And yet, this listening carried weight beyond maintenance. To hear flow was also to hear theft. An inspector could tell when water had been diverted. The sound changed, weakened, uneven. He could follow it, ear to wall, step by step, until he found the hidden pipe. His listening was not only for cracks, but for lies. In this way, his ear became an arbiter of justice, though his voice remained silent. Picture now the baths, alive with steam and voices. Citizens recline in warm pools, their bodies eased. They do not think of the water's journey, of the arches and tunnels, of the men who listen in shadows. But one inspector passes quietly, his head tilted, his ear attuned to drains and pipes. He hears too much flow here, too little there. He frowns, makes note, moves on. His listening carries weight, though none notice, though none thank him. Listening was not easy. The city's noise could drown it. Markets roared, theaters sang, crowds shouted. Specters sought quiet places, leaned close, closed their eyes, focused, holy. Their senses sharpened, their patience stretched. They carried sound and memory, comparing today's flow with yesterday's, this season's hum with last season's. Their minds became ledgers not of numbers alone, but of tones, rhythms, echoes. Pause. Again, imagine lying awake at night, hearing water faintly in the distance, flowing unseen. The inspector hears more than sound. He hears its meaning. He knows where it falters, where it is strong, where it is stolen. His ears carry the city's truth, though his lips rarely speak it. And so his duty is not written in marble or bronze, not proclaimed in law or decree. It is whispered in stone, echoed in tunnels, carried in memory. Rome endures because men listened, because ears bent to water in silence. Their names are forgotten, their tablets lost, but their listening lingers in every arch that still stands, in every channel that still carried flow centuries later. Now the night grows deeper. The inspector stands once more beneath an arch, ear pressed to stone, lantern dim. The water glides past unseen, its sound steady, its voice soft. He nods quietly, satisfied. He moves on, swallowed by shadows, leaving behind only the hush of flow. And you are left with a reflection that drifts like water through stone. It's Rome's endurance, built by the roar of armies, or by the men who bent their ears to silence, listening for whispers that no one else would hear. Asterisk, the sun has climbed high above the arches now, its light bright on stone, its warmth settling across the fields. The aqueducts gleam against the sky, their shadows short, their silence vast, acute, and yet, within them, water moves with sound, not a roar, not a torrent, but a steady murmur, a voice that must always be understood. The inspector listens not only at dawn or dusk, but in the full blaze of day, when the city above is loudest. For faults do not wait for silence. They creep into channels at all hours, whispering their warnings to those patient enough to hear. Picture him standing at the base of a great pier. The stone blocks massive, fitted tightly, yet not eternal. Cracks spread over years, moss grows. In joints, roots pry from the soil below. It bends, ear pressed against the cool wall. At first, it seems firm, steady, true, but then a faint hollow tone, different from the solid echo he knows so well. He frowns, taps lightly with his knuckles. The sound returns, duller than expected. Somewhere within, water has begun to erode, to seep, to weaken. To others it would be nothing. To him, it is a voice calling quietly for attention. Pause with him in that silence. Hear the difference, the low, steady hum of strong flow, the faint, uneven hiss of leak. He marks it in his tablet, a simple line carved in wax. Later, masons will come. Stone will be reset, mortar packed. But for now, his listening is the city's only defense. Faults could take many forms. Some began as leaks, water seeping through hairline cracks, darkening stone with damp stains. Others were blockages, silt and debris caught in tunnels, slowing the rhythm, causing stutters in flow. Still others were shifts in pressure, sudden changes that spoke of diversion or theft. To the inspector, each fault had a sound, each sound a meaning. He carried a whole vocabulary of murmurs in his air, unspoken yet precise. Imagine him deep in a tunnel, the air close, the lamp dim. He crouches by the channel, listening to the low rush. Today, it is uneven, louder in bursts, softer in pauses. He knows this rhythm, debris caught, then released, then caught again. He takes his tool, scrapes gently, clears the obstruction. The sound steadies, smooth once more. He nods, wipes his hands, moves on. No one above will know that he was here. No one will notice that today's baths run smoother, that today's fountains splash brighter. But it is so, because he heard the fault, and he answered. At times, faults grew dangerous. A leak left unattended could widen into collapse, spilling water in torrents, washing soil away, bringing arches down. A blockage left to thicken could choke flow entirely, leaving neighborhoods dry, fountains empty, baths silent. The inspector knew this weight. His listening was not idle, not trivial. It was defense against disaster, against silence spreading where flow should be. Picture the baths again, this time quieter, nearly empty in midday heat. He walks among the pools, listening. To most, the sound is ordinary. The splash of water, the gurgle of drains, the faint hiss of steam. To him, it is chorus. He hears balance, harmony, order. But sometimes, a note rings false, A drain louder than it should be, a pipe gurgling too slowly, a fountain splashing unevenly. Heat tilts his head, frowns, makes note. Tomorrow repairs will come. He listens, and the baths remain trusted. And always, there was the weight of time. The stone wears, mortar crumbles, channels crack. The inspector knew he was never ahead for long. His work was not to perfect, but to maintain. He was always listening for what would fail next, always guarding against the inevitable. His duty was endless, like the flow itself, patient, unbroken, quiet. Pause again and feel the air of the tunnel with him, cool, damp, heavy with silence. The lamp trembles, shadows move. The water slides past, whispering softly. He bends closer, ear nearly touching stone. He closes his eyes, hears every note, every murmur. He carries it with him, a map of sound drawn in memory. When he emerges at last into sunlight, his face streaked with dust, his cloak damp with moss, he squints at the brightness. The city bustles around him, citizens laughing, shouting, hurrying. None glance at him. None think of where he has been, what he has heard, what he carries. Yet their fountains flow, their baths steam, their cisterns fill, because he listened. Two faults no one else could hear. And so his duty continues, silent, forgotten, yet immense. He is the ear of the city, pressed to stone, attuned to whispers. Rome endures because he hears what others ignore. And you are left with a thought, soft and unresolved. Perhaps the true strength of empires lies not in their loudest triumphs, but in the faintest murmurs caught by those who bend close enough to listen. Night falls again across Rome. The markets are closed, the streets quieter, though not silent. Torches flicker along alleyways, their smoke rising in thin trails toward the stars. In the distance, the aqueduct arches stand black against the sky, their outlines vast, their presence immovable, and through them, as always, water flows. Night does not rest with the city. It glides onward, unbroken, its voice steady. And in this darkness, when most sleep, inspectors still listen. For water speaks differently at night, and its faults are easier to hear when the city's noise has faded. Picture an inspector walking slowly along a stone channel beneath the arches. The air is cool, the world hushed. His lamp glows faintly, its light catching the rough texture of stone, the glimmer of damp patches where cracks spread. He pauses, bends, presses his ear to the wall. The sound comes clear, a hum, steady, like breath. He nods. He continues. At the next arch, he bends again. This time, the sound is uneven, a faint hiss where no hiss should be. He marks it, sighs, moves on. Tomorrow, he will send men to pack the mortar, to seal the fault. Tonight, he listens alone, his silence his companion. Pause here and feel the atmosphere around him. The darkness is vast, the stars faint, the torchlight distant. His lamp seems small, fragile, a weak defense against night. Yet in that weakness lies his strength. He does not need to see. He needs only to hear. And what he hears is enough to save the city at night. The voices of flow grow clearer. Pipes empty into fountains with softer tones. Drains gurgle more distinctly. Cisterns echo more sharply. Specters walk the streets in darkness, pausing at fountains, at baths, at basins. They crouch, ears close, listening to the water's song. Each fountain has a note, each bath a rhythm, each cistern a hum. The inspector knows them all. He knows when they falter, when they lie, when they warn. Imagine him stopping at a public fountain in a small square. The basin glitters in lamplight. Its ripples faint. He bends, listening. To others, it is silence. To him, it is language. The arc is weaker than it was yesterday. The splash softer, the drain slower. He frowns. Somewhere upstream, water is stolen, or blocked. He cannot know where tonight, but he marks it in his mind. Tomorrow he will follow, step by step, ear to wall, until the theft is found. Asterisks, the night carries dangers too. Inspectors walk alone, their lamps faint, their cloaks plain. Thieves lurk, drunkards stumble, shadows conceal threats. Some inspectors are struck, robbed, silenced. Others vanish into darkness, their names unrecorded, their duties forgotten. But still, men walk. Still, they listen. For water cannot be left unguarded, not even in the hours when the city sleeps. Pause and think of the silence of your own night. Imagine hearing only water, faint, steady, flowing, unseen. Imagine walking, with ear bent, with lamp trembling, with shadows pressing close. The inspector lived this often, not once, but again and again, for years. His life was the rhythm of water, and water never ceased. And in this rhythm lies something timeless. Rome's monuments crumble, its forums fall silent, its emperors fade into dust. Yet the water once flowed, night after night, because men listened. Their names are gone, but their echoes remain in the arches that still stand. In the ruins that still trace the paths of channels across the land. Each stone remembers them. Each whisper of water at night carries their presence. The inspector, at last, reaches his dwelling. His lamp is nearly out, his body weary, his ears still echoing with the hum of flow. He sets down his tools, blows out the flame, rests in silence. But even in sleep, perhaps he dreams of water, its sounds, its murmurs, its warnings. For his duty does not end with day or with night. It is endless as the flow itself, and you are left with a thought that drifts like the hush of water through stone. Was Rome's strength carved in its marble forms, or in the quiet footsteps of men who listened at night, catching whispers that no one else heard? Morning returns once more. The sun climbs over the hills, gilding the aqueduct arches with light, striking marble temples, warming the tiled roofs of the city. Rome stirs to life again, the calls of vendors, the rumble of carts, the footsteps of citizens filling the streets. And as always, water flows. It glides unseen across miles of stone, down into the city, into fountains, into baths, into cisterns. It sustains the city without pause, as constant as breath. Yet those who guarded it, those who listened, tasted, watched, their names have vanished. Their ledgers lie empty, their voices silent, their duties forgotten. Imagine one inspector seated at a wooden table, his cloak folded beside him, his tools resting nearby. In front of him lies a wax tablet, its surface covered in faint markings. He has recorded measures of flow, notes of faults, signs of theft. His stylus scratches softly, pressing lines into wax that will be smoothed away tomorrow, written anew. These records are temporary, like the water itself, flowing, fading, replaced. Unlike marble inscriptions that praise emperors, the inspectors' words do not endure. They exist for duty, not for memory. Pause and look at the scene more closely. The room smells faintly of damp stone, of oil from the lamp burning low, of bread cooling nearby. Outside, voices echo, carts rumble past. Inside, there is only the quiet scratch of stylus, the flicker of flame, the steady rhythm of a man recording what no one else will see. Tomorrow, he will wipe the tablet clean. His notes will vanish, just as his name will vanish, yet the water will remain flowing, steady, indifferent to memory. The inspectors were many, spread across the aqueducts, the cisterns, the fountains. Their duties were recorded in administrative texts, yet seldom with names. We know of laws against theft, of decrees about purity, of orders for maintenance. We know that inspectors existed, that they walked the arches, listened in tunnels, tasted at basins, but their individual lives, their voices, their thoughts, their burdens are silent. They were shadows moving along stone, guardians without, monuments. Picture one of them climbing an aqueduct arch at dawn. His sandals scrape stone, his cloak flutters in the breeze. He reaches the top, crouches, presses his ear to the channel. He hears flow, steady and strong. He notes it on his tablet, scratches lines that few will ever read. He stands, moves on, repeats. His steps echo, his body bends, his hand presses, his ear listens. And when he is gone, nothing remains, only the water still flowing, only the silence still pressing. There is something haunting in this absence. Rome remembers its emperors in marble, its generals in triumphal arches, its senators in inscriptions. But the men who ensured the city's lifeblood endured. They are nameless. Their work sustained millions, but history erases what is ordinary. Their ledgers fade, their names dissolve, their presence becomes shadow. Only the arches remain, only the ruins whisper, only the faint memory of their duty survives. Pause here and let the atmosphere of loss settle. You hear the water still flowing, but you feel the silence where voices should be. You see the arches still standing, but you sense the absence of those who walk them. The inspectors vanish into the very silence that guarded their existence, proven only by what endured, not by what was remembered. Now imagine one inspector at the end of his life. He sits in his small room, his cloak folded neatly, his lamp burning low. His body is weary, his ears still echo with water's murmur. He knows he will not be remembered. His wax tablets will be smooth, clean, his tools passed to another. The water will flow on, indifferent to his absence. Yet, perhaps, he feels a quiet pride. He knows that he walked where others did not, that he listened when others ignored, that he kept Rome alive in silence. His pride is private, his duty unspoken. He rests and the flow continues. And so, the vanishing of names becomes part of the story. The inspectors were forgotten because their success was silence. They left no crises to record, no disasters to remember. They prevented, they preserved, they endured. Their legacy is not their names, but the unbroken stream that carried Rome. Through centuries, you linger with this thought. The aqueducts rise in your imagination, their arches vast against the sky. Arta glides across them, silent, steady. Inspectors walk their lengths, their ears pressed to stone, their tablets scratched with notes. And then, like the water itself, they vanish, their presence fading, their names dissolving. Only the flow remains, and you are left with a question that drifts like water into silence. Is it better to be remembered for triumphs that fade, or to be forgotten in person, yet endure forever in the unbroken stream you once guarded? Asterisk, the midday sun burns brightly now, striking rooftops and marble temples, shimmering across the bronze helmets of soldiers in the Forum. Rome gleams in light, proud and loud, its monuments towering, its voices echoing. Names are everywhere here. Emperors carve theirs into arches, generals inscribe theirs on monuments, wealthy citizens mark theirs on tombs. Memory is preserved in stone and bronze, in marble letters that catch the sun. But for the water inspectors, there are no inscriptions, no statues, no carved names. They pass through the city like shadows, vital and invisible, known only in the moment, forgotten as soon as the water continues to flow. Picture one walking quietly past the Forum now. Citizens rush past, debating, haggling, arguing. None notice him. His cloak is plain, his sandals worn, his tools simple. He carries a lamp for tunnels, a stylus for notes, nothing more. Yet he knows more of the city's lifeblood than most senators. He knows which fountains will falter tomorrow, which basins need clearing, which pipes have been tapped unlawfully. He carries knowledge as great as law, yet he is nameless among the crowd. Pause here and feel the difference. Rome proclaims greatness, loudly, in arches, in columns, in statues. But the inspector's greatness is silence. He is remembered only by absence. Absence of collapse, absence of drought, absence of foulness. His work is the prevention of failure, not the creation of triumph. And prevention leaves no monument. Silence leaves no stone. Consider his wax tablets again. He writes daily notes of cracks, of leaks, of silt, of theft. His stylus scratches lines into soft wax, lines that guide repairs, that guard flow, that sustain the city. And then, at day's end, the tablet is smoothed, the lines erased, the surface ready for tomorrow. His words do not endure. His memory does not endure. Only the water endures, and it endures silently. The inspector lives in the shadow of this anonymity. Perhaps he feels weariness at being unseen. Perhaps he feels relief, knowing his life is unburdened by the pride of monuments. He may whisper prayers to the gods of rivers, to nymphs of springs, asking not for memory, but for strength. His pride is private. His reward is invisible. His duty is endless, and his anonymity is part of it. Now, imagine him in a crowd at a fountain. Citizens gather with cups and jars, laughter and conversation rising. The inspector bends, tastes the water, smells it, listens. To others, he is only another man at the fountain, unnoticed, unremarked. But he hears the flow weakening, feels the taste metallic, knows a pipe must be replaced. He makes a mark on his tablet, slips away, and no one ever knows he was there. Yet their trust in the fountain holds because of him. There's irony here. Rome carved names of emperors into aqueducts themselves. Arches bear inscriptions of those who ordered them, those who funded them, those who claimed them as triumphs. Yet the men who ensured they flowed century after century remain unrecorded. History remembers command, not maintenance, power, not patience. Names that shouted, not ears that listened. Pause again and breathe with this thought. The inspector's silence becomes heavier. He knows that when he dies, his tools will pass to another, his duties continue, his name forgotten. His children, if he has any, may never speak of his work. He is swallowed into the city, dissolved into the flow. His legacy is not in stone, but in water, invisible, constant, without inscription. And yet, perhaps, that is legacy enough. For what is remembered more deeply, the name carved in stone, eroded by centuries, or the water that still flows, still glistens, still sustains? The inspector may be nameless, but the trust he guarded remains. The fountains still sparkle, the baths still steam, the cisterns still fill. His anonymity is shadow, but it is also endurance. Now picture the aqueducts again, vast against the horizon. Their arches stand silent, their channels still traceable, even in ruin. Tourists, centuries later, marvel at them, walk beneath them, gaze upward in awe. They remember emperors, architects, engineers. They do not remember inspectors. But the inspectors are there, hidden in every stone, in every joint, in every echo of water. Their silence lingers, though their names are lost, and you are left with a reflection that drifts like water into shadow. Perhaps the truest legacy is not to be remembered in name, but to be remembered in trust, a trust so complete that no one even thinks to ask who preserved it. Asterisk, the day wanes once more. The shadows lengthen across the forum, across the marble temples, across the arches of the aqueducts, stretching into the distance. The evening breeze rises, carrying with it the mingled scents of bread cooling in ovens, smoke drifting from hearths, and the faint dampness of fountains still splashing in courtyards. Rome exhales as night approaches, but the water does not rest. It flows, steady, silent, endless, and with it flows the memory of men who watched, who listened, who guarded. Their names are gone, their faces forgotten, yet the flow remembers them. Picture an inspector one final time. He walks at dusk beneath the arches, his lamp faint, his steps slow. Okay, he's older now, his back bent, his ears less sharp than they once were. But he still bends, still listens, still presses his ear to stone. The water hums, soft, steady. He nods, satisfied. Tomorrow, others will walk here, younger men with keener ears, stronger hands. But tonight, he listens once more, as he has all. His life, the flow, has been his companion, his burden, his pride. Pause here and feel the air with him. The stones are warm from the day, the sky glowing faintly with the last light. The water moves unseen above, whispering in its steady language. His lamp flickers, shadows stretch. He stands quietly, hand on stone, ear bent, eyes closed. The city above roars with voices, but here, in the arches, he hears only water. It is enough. When he returns home, his wax tablets rest on his table. Marks fill their surfaces, notes of faults, signs of theft, measures of flow. He smooths one tablet with his stylus, the lines vanishing into soft wax. His records, like his life, are temporary. Tomorrow, they will be written anew. Tomorrow, the water will demand fresh notes, fresh ears, fresh vigilance. Nothing of him will endure except the trust he sustained, the silence he guarded, the flow he preserved. This was the fate of all inspectors. Their names did not outlast them. Their notes were erased, their voices unrecorded, their duties forgotten, but their work flowed on. Every child who drank from a fountain, every bather who reclined in marble halls, every family who drew from cisterns, all lived in comfort because unseen men bent their heads to water. Their anonymity was not failure, but proof of success. Rome never thought of them because Rome never had to. The water flowed, the city endured. That was enough. Pause again and let this thought settle. How many other lives are built this way? Unseen, unpraised, forgotten, yet essential. How much of history rests not on triumphs carved in marble, but on quiet duties carried without recognition? The inspector's life is a mirror for all such lives, anonymous, silent, patient, yet holding the weight of worlds. Now, picture the aqueducts centuries later. Their arches rise in ruin, broken yet vast, grass growing among stones, the sky seen through their hollow spans. Travelers walk beneath them, marveling, whispering of Rome's greatness. They remember emperors who ordered them, architects who designed them, engineers who built them, but the inspectors who kept them alive for centuries, who listened in, tunnels who bent over basins, who guarded purity, are silent in memory. Their names dissolved, their presence faded, and yet, in every stone that still stands, in every channel that once flowed, their vigilance lingers, for water is memory too. It's flowed through their hands, through their ears, through their silence. It carried Rome's life, and in doing so, it carried theirs as well. Their names are gone, but their labor remains, etched not in stone, but in endurance, not in inscription, but in flow. And so, you sit now with this reflection, quiet, steady, unresolved. The water inspectors of Rome are forgotten, their duties erased, their lives dissolved into shadow. The water still flows in memory, whispering faintly of their presence. Rome endured because of them, though Rome does not remember them, and you are left with a final thought that drifts softly, like water through stone. Is it better to be named in monuments that crumble, or to vanish in silence, while the flow you once guarded endures forever?